delicate dentistry is to work with a team. There is no miracle, there is no success. This afternoon, we have not a long time, but it's important to be focused on two main topics for the afternoon in order to speak about ultra-thin restoration, because this is a very trendy topic. But in the other side, when you speak about ultra-thin restoration, it means that you want to enter in very elitistic dentistry. So it means that you are supposed to touch only a few parts of the community. And I think that this is not at all the purpose that I want to share with you, because we want that everybody is able to improve the daily life. And a company like Ivoclar today is able to provide us material able to simplify just by pressing, just by milling, and by improving the general level of the restoration worldwide. After, also, I love to speak and to work with very talented ceramists, but this is a part. But the purpose of my topic is just to try to find with you the way to simplify, because I strongly believe that simplification of the dentistry should be the way. Yes. Because if we have not an easy access of the dentistry, it means that only a happy few dentists could follow that kind of topic. And this is not at all what I want. And in the past, we have many very beautiful things, but at the end of the story, I want everybody to leave this room at the end of the day with something new in the pocket. It means that you need to get some pedagogic tools, some tips, some tricks, in order just to improve something for tomorrow. This is what I want to share with you. And also, this philosophy of simplicity, sorry, because my, okay. So, it doesn't work, don't know why. Okay, we'll do it by this, it's okay. Yes. So the most important things to enter in this very delicate dentistry is to work with a team. There is no miracle, there is no success if you don't work in harmony. And I think that the lecture with Maurizio and Eric was very helpful, and it highlights how important is the communication with the talent. And again, if we want to get the right recipes for the daily life, we need ingredients. And this ingredient should be first to believe in philosophy. Philosophy is to follow the minimal invasive dentistry, for sure. You need to use also bonded material. If you don't bond, it's not possible to enter in this very attractive dentistry. And the last thing, and for me probably the most important, is the methodology, because this is the best way to improve all the level of my students at the beginning of the year. I want to catch them until the end of the year as a good dentist. And for that, you have only one option, it's just to follow the methodology in order to be repeatable, predictable, teachable. Otherwise, this is just, if you are an artist, I have a lot of respect for the artist, but unfortunately, I'm very scared with the artist if I place them in my university, because I'm not sure that most of the audience will be able to do exactly what they do tomorrow morning. And this is the problem with the artist. And I am not an artist, I'm just a teacher, and as a teacher, I want just to bring everybody from one point and to go in the right direction. So we will highlight on two hot topics, cosmetic and wear and erosion, which is more functional topic. And we will talk about first the laminate in the dyschroma cases, because it is probably one of the worst case scenario when you want to play in the cosmetic field. Because during a long time we have many articles concerning this, but at the end of the story, if we come from the beginning and if we want to follow some minimally invasive treatment, the first step should be probably to follow the bleaching. But bleaching for that kind of treatment, you don't know exactly for how long, probably more than 6 months, and also for which kind of color you will get at the end of the bleaching after 6 months. Probably it will be a disaster, it will be more difficult to manage it. So then we have to find the way with laminate veneer, for example. It can be a biological way and an aesthetic way. But then it becomes a challenge for me as a dentist. The challenge is I want to take care of the biology, because we understood since the last 20 years that the biology became the most important pillar of the dentistry. And from that pillar, all the dentistry has to manage and has to deal with that. It means that the dental manufacturer has to provide us material able to follow this. We want to protect the teeth, and then the material has to follow the rules. And the challenge for my ceramist, for the technician, is to provide us some restoration which is not whitish, which is not opaque, which is just a kind between fluorescency and value. And this is a tricky point probably. So to find this balance, this is a tricky point. And in the past, what do we know about this is most of the articles suggested us to cut, because the thickness of the restoration is, unfortunately, the only way to create the color. But in the other side, you know like me, that the deeper is your prep, the more complex will be to manage the severity of the dyschromia, unfortunately. So it means that we want to take care of the enamel, but this is the challenge of the day. And also, we have other option, is to play with a feldspathic. This is what Michel did with Panos, and I say hello to Panos, I know that he is in the room. And it is an unbelievable job. But this is in the hand of Michel, and this is not a repeatable process as a pressable concept could be. Because press, everybody is able to press. Making layering with a area, this is difficult. So at the end of the story, I want you to remind that we need to deprogram a little bit and to change completely our way of thinking in order to move from what I did at the end of the notice. And I was very proud of that. For me, it was very mechanical, very symmetric, very geometric. But today, I feel a little bit guilty to do that, to do that. But unfortunately, at this period, it was supposed to be one of the gold standards. Today, this is what I want. What I want is just to stop to fight against the dyschromia, because we don't want to completely mask the dyschromia. Because at the end of that, it won't be aesthetic, it won't be natural. And I speak as a Latin guy because I live in France and we are in Europe. And in Europe we have probably another sense of our culture of aesthetic is to try to copy the nature. If I come from Hollywood, for sure my patient wants to have a Hollywood smile. But in France, when my patient wants to go out from my office, they want nobody to see that they did something. This is just a change of mentality. And we need to take care about this. And in the other side, if you stop to fight, it means that you have to stop to cut. It means that you have to go to play with the dyschromia. Use the dyschromia, but as a good tool and as an advantages instead of disadvantages. This is something important. So to point out, as you can see, my English is terrible. To point at this, you have to share with me this clinical situation. This clinical situation is a Vietnamese girl, very charming, very positive. She has an important position in a company in Vietnam, but unfortunately, she is always very uncomfortable, unconfident with his smile because of the C4 color. But in the other side, if you look at the shape, the shape is unbelievable because the nature was able to create this mongoloid shape very specific from the Asian area. And at the end of the story, what we want for that case is to take care of the structure. And for that, we need to follow the guided prep concept that it was promoted by Pascal, by Galip a couple of years before. And we need to follow the prep following exactly the initial volume, because in that case, the initial volume can be managed as our mock-up. And this is why we wanted to follow that direction. Because why enamel preservation is so important? Enamel preservation is important for bond strength, because when you bond on enamel, for sure it's better, but also for optical reason. Because if you keep that kind of enamel, for sure, you can see this latest study from Galip, it means that you have, after 12 years, you have a very high level of success rate of your laminate when you are on enamel. When you glue enamel, this is just perfect. This is the ideal condition. But if you understand a little bit how it works, you can see here that when you keep these precious things, it should play as a pillow. It means that because you keep enamel, it absorbs a part of the dyschromia. If you remove it, you enter in very severe dyschromia, and then for the ceramist, it becomes a disaster, and it will be very difficult to find the right way, aesthetically speaking. So from that, it's important to communicate well in order to give exactly the color of the substrate and not only the initial color. Because to match well, the technician needs to know what is the initial color, but also what is the color after the prep in order to match between the restoration and also the model that he can get into the lab. And from that, when we want to manage it in the lab, and this is the case that I did with my precious friend, because I learned a lot from him. Gerald Ubassy is probably one of the best ceramists, but why he is one of the best? Because he has a huge knowledge of the nature. He knows probably more than, he studied more than 5,000 natural teeth, means that he knows perfectly what is the structure, what is the color, and he is one of the best to reconstruct exactly what happened in the nature. So he press it, and as you know, with the press, it's possible to go in very thin restoration, something like 0.3 millimeter. And we selected, and this is probably the original things of this afternoon, is we press with LT, low translucent coping. Why? Because in one hand, on 0.3 millimeter, we wanted to have a perspiration of the dyschromia through the restoration. And in the other hand, if you want to press with MO, you have not enough thickness to cover that kind of high value. And it means that you will lose completely the possibility to create something just natural, because I want to keep part of the dyschromia in order to create something just natural. And this is what he did. This is the press part. As you can see here, the LT is something that you need to remember. And you can see how thin can be the press part. And the layering part will be focused mainly on the enamel powder to highlight the veneer, just with a very thin dentin body, and then they highlight it in order, to create a better value at the end of the story. And you can see here in the middle of my restoration, this is exactly where the laminate is the thinner. And on the proximal area, because of the mongoloid shape, we have a little bit more space to create and to highlight our restoration. And this is why, from the lab, we were able to convert it in the mouth. And after that, it's important also to discuss a little bit about the issue for the resin cement. Because without any kind of cement, you can see that the laminate is a little bit opaque because you have hair between the substrate and between the restoration. And if you apply the restoration, the resin cement, then you create the perspiration of the dyschromia, but just in the delicate way. And then we glue it one by one, because we strongly believe that this is the best way to manage perfectly the removal of the excess. And we also believe that the classic step, multi-step adhesive procedure are probably at the moment the best way. And then you can see that we went from the C4 color to the B2. And this is what we got finally after all of this prep and cementation process. And at the end of the story, this is not an Hollywood smile, but this was not the expectation of the patient. We just wanted to copy the nature. We just wanted to highlight the smile of the patient, but not to completely change the personality of the patient, because this was not the wish of these very charming girls. And at the end of the story, we always say that the truth comes from the patient. And she has just a small testimonial for Gerald that I want to share with you.